smoke, the first sight of cigars, but no gold. He continued sailing and landed on Hispaniola, the present-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And here, fortunately, he found more evidence of gold worn by the Taínos, a largely gentle people. Christmas Day 1492 found the fleet in a small harbour, but the Santa Maria had gone aground on a reef. All attempts to refloat it the following day were doomed, and the flagship was lost. But Columbus took it as a sign and decided to found a colony at that spot. Navidad, Christmas Town, was the first attempt at a settlement on the other side of the Atlantic by the Spanish explorers. With the town fortified in a few days, Columbus set off back to Spain in the Niña, convinced that he had found a source of gold and spices, and as a devout believer in the Catholic Church, great potential for converts. On board, he carried 11 islanders from Hispaniola, as extra proof of the lands he had discovered. By brilliant navigation, despite only having very primitive instruments to check speed and position on the open sea, Columbus made it back to Europe, first arriving in Portugal having survived a storm. He finally sailed around Cape St. Vincent and arrived in Spain 224 days after he left.
Of this voyage I observe that the will of God hath miraculously been set forth,
he wrote at the end of his journal, which he presented to the King and Queen of Spain. He pointed out that he had succeeded despite the opposition he had faced in court as he tried to persuade Ferdinand and Isabella to invest in his idea. And his reward was a letter addressed to himself as Don Cristobal Colon, Admiral of the Ocean Sea, Viceroy and Governor of the islands that he hath discovered in the Indies, and funds for a second voyage. It was the happiest moment of his life. What's more, he was ordered to prepare for a second voyage, this time to start the colonization and exploitation of the Indies on behalf of Spain. Ferdinand and Isabella wanted to make quite sure that Spain would reap all the benefits from gold which they would obtain from the natives of Hispaniola. The importance of the expedition could be seen by its size. On the 25th of September 1493, 17 ships led by Santa Maria, the same name as the flagship on the first voyage, though it was nicknamed Maria Galante, left Cadiz harbour. Aboard were some 200 men chosen from thousands who had volunteered to become the first colonists, in the hope of making their fortunes in the gold trade. 1,000 sailors and soldiers, including a cavalry troop of 20 lancers, and 6 priests, whose job was to convert the natives to Christianity. In the event, it took them 3 years of preaching before the first man from Hispaniola agreed to be baptized. The royal orders instructed Columbus to establish a trading colony, help the priests in their religious work, and explore Cuba to see whether it really was part of the mainland of Asia, which would eventually lead to the splendid golden cities of Cathay. The fleet, brightly decorated with pennants and the flag of Castile, the Spanish royal family, was escorted out of Cadiz harbour by a fleet of Venetian rowing galleys. Trumpets sounded, drums beat, and cannon fired. Expectation of huge success was high. With all the signs being so good, few considered the possibility of the failure that was to come. The second transatlantic crossing was another brilliant feat of navigation and seamanship, and the weather was perfect. Travelling at an average of 5 knots, the fleet travelled 2,600 miles from the Canaries to Dominica in the Lesser Antilles in 22 days. Dolphins and flying fish sprung out of the water between the boats before diving back into the dark blue sea, and the large white square sails of the 17 boats could be seen across the horizon. He sailed around the other islands in the group, naming them as his imagination took him. On Santa Maria de Guadalupe, he encountered savage cannibals, the Caribs, and rescued young captives about to be eaten. He sailed through the Virgin Islands, then along the shore of Puerto Rico, all the time heading towards the settlement of